Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here to the World Center of Racing. Daytona International Speedway plays host to race number 6 of the TNR Superspeedway Series. Here tonight, we're at the legacy version of Daytona, where not only will these drivers have to deal with their cars and with the other drivers around them, they're also going to have to deal with the very rough surface of this older version of this historic Superspeedway. I'm Seth Cole, alongside of Anthony McCurry. Anthony, we're past the halfway point of the season. Now is the time for those drivers that are up there inside the top 5, 6 in the point standings to make their moves for that championship with only a handful of races left to go.
Absolutely, and this one's going to be one of the toughest challenges these guys are going to have to face so far this season. Like you said, it's the old Daytona, so that brings about the old surface, which means that your car is going to be feeling a bit unhappy through these turns as we advance through the evening. But it's going to be a fun challenge. I cannot wait to see these points, the championship contenders in the points, to see what they've got tonight. See if they can get around Daytona, get around the legacy Daytona, and see if they can get up and get a win tonight.
Everybody still chasing David Durand for the current points lead. Alonso Chicano claims the pole position for tonight's event alongside of Steven Doziak Jr., Garrett Gleason, Kyle Lewis, and Matthew Rodriguez are going to be the top 5 here as 14 drivers will take the green flag in tonight's festivities. 14 points separate David Durand from Austin Grover for the current points lead. Then you've got drivers Jason Shuey, Jason Gracias, Matthew Rodriguez. These guys are 64 to 92 points back, but we know with the bonus point system that they've got here in the Sunday Superspeedway Series, there still is time for these guys to mount comebacks, get themselves up there in the championship picture by the time we get to the season finale at Daytona in mid-October.
Absolutely, and being that they only have a half a season to do it, though, it does kind of give about a bit of urgency being past the halfway point now, but plenty of opportunities, like you said, to make it up. But eyeing some of the championship contenders in the field right now, I think the highest starting one would be Matthew Rodriguez. 5th in the standings, will be lying up in 5th place on the racetrack. And then you have to go all the way down before we get to 11th to find our points leader, David Durand, who will be starting in 11th place. Other than that, everyone else throughout the field, Austin Grover will be in 13th behind him. Jason Shuey, I don't think took a time. He'll be starting in 14th. So those guys that are running up high in the standings, they got to work their way through this field if they want to get this win tonight. But plenty of time to do it. 60 laps tonight.
Let's also remember with Durand and Grover, Jason Shuey, you get 10 bonus points if you have the most improved positions from your starting point to your finishing result. So obviously that might be why they didn't put down the lap times, to get those bonus points by the end of the night. Green flag is out. 60 laps here at the Legacy Daytona, and it was interesting, Anthony. You and I, we were kind of listening to the driver chatter during practice. Drivers expecting this to be a little bit more of a toned down race just based on the fact that they're basically only able to run out 2 lanes here, and that's a big issue that they're going to have to deal with. It's giving room, and there we go. Garrett Gleason around here on the first lap of the first turn here at Daytona, and the caution immediately waves.
That is exactly how treacherous this track can be. I think it was just a bobble at the front of the field that caused the initial contact, and then I don't know. I think that Garrett Gleason might have gone up the track and all of that, but that is how dangerous this racetrack can be.
This is the risk that you run if you start towards the back. David Durand, Jason Shuey, and Vincent Valvano, all drivers who did not put down a lap time in qualifying, started at the rear of the field. All of them getting bits and pieces of that incident. Some pretty extensive front-end damage around the grill of the 38 car as we go back, see what happened there in turn 1.
I think there was a meeting of the minds going into turn 1. It was Garrett Gleason on the inside, and to his outside, he had the green machine. I'm trying to see who that was, but ended up getting hit by. I don't know if they came down or they just ran out of racing room.
Steven Doziak Jr. in the 55 that he made the initial contact with the door-to-door. David Durand, Jason Shuey, actually both right there you see getting on the brakes. So they were not involved. They just slowed down to avoid the incident. I believe as we ride on board here with Matthew Rodriguez, I think he got some contact with the left front fender.
He certainly came off of it slow, looking on board of him as well. And I think that you're correct. Just ever so slightly contact on the right side of the 55. and that might be enough. He did get a little, he actually kind of pushed Gleason to the eventual spin, so there's some contact on the front of that car as well, but I don't know if that's going to be too much damage.
The driver with some pretty big damage. This was mostly because of the outside wall. The 12 of Cam Caldwell is right on board with him. Watch as he tries to skirt to the top side with the 7 coming back up the banking, and unfortunately going to make some pretty good contact with the outside wall. Actually, might have got a little bit of help there into the outside wall. I think that might have been the 54 of Tom Bourne that doored him up into the safer barrier.
And that will be extensive damage for Bourne, as well as yeah, he did get pretty hard hit to the outside wall. And the drivers you would expect to be on pit road have gone onto the pit lane. Matthew Rodriguez, one of them, is on the pit lane now, exiting the pit lane, and he, I believe, has gotten some damage repair. Now, all these drivers have one fast repair at their disposal, so even if there was significant damage on most of these race cars at that stage, they can still get their car completely fixed. But being how it was so early, I don't think many drivers were too keen on wanting to use it this early on. But as far as I can see right now, nobody has. I'll make that one person has elected to take it, and that would be our most damaged driver out of all of that, Vincent Valvano, which took a pretty hard shot to his left and right side.
Valvano, a former winner this season from Talladega, and came into this race 8th in the point stands, 109 points out of the current points lead. A lot of drivers on pit lane there that got like little bits and pieces, as you alluded to there. Not extensive damage, but enough that they had to get some repairs done on pit road. We already mentioned about Tom Bourne there. Looks like Robert Kenny, last week's winner, he was on pit road for an extensive amount of time. Mike Tellier had quite a bit of front end damage on his FRN Toyota, and also noticed that Michael Norman in the 21 was on pit lane for a long period of time. Cam Caldwell still on pit road getting damage repaired. So, you know, what looked like at a quick glance maybe 2 or 3 drivers involved in the incident, we've got about maybe 6 or 7 drivers that were involved in this one.
Some way, in some shape, they were involved. It was a stack up at the front, so it's kind of going to accordion all the way back through to the rest of the pack. So it's honestly amazing that we didn't have as many cars swept up in this as I thought we would. Everyone was super bunched up at the start of the race, and able to get on the brakes were some key contenders in the championship hunt. But even still, not a whole lot of drivers electing to take the fast repair either after everyone cycled around. I want to give an update. We had the one being Valvano, but Garrett Gleason now has also decided to take one. Understandably so. He was the one that was the center of everyone's attention, but he's back onto the track. One lap down, he will join the field. Our leader is going to be Alonso Chicano, who started on the pole, will continue to be the lead. Kyle Lewis will move into second place. David Durand will move into third place. So fantastic up for David Durand, and Matthew Rodriguez will be lining up in fourth. Vincent Valvano will be in fifth for this restart.
You mentioned there before we went green, this being one of the tougher tracks that we're going to be at here during the course of the schedule, and the last thing you want to do is be a fast repair in the hole when we even haven't reached lap 5 of a 60-lap event. So Valvano, Garrett Gleason, they're going to be on pins and needles here for the remainder of this one, hoping to keep their cars in one piece at least until we get around to the 5 to go mark, and a hope to try and pick up the checkered flag. Another thing that we were told here by drivers is, opposed to other races we've seen here in the past this schedule, it might be a little bit more difficult for them to generate runs just based on the fact that these cars, they are bouncing around on this older track surface. We'll see if that's the case here, as we'll see if these drivers can now settle down to a long green flag run. Chicano and David Durand going to be nose to tail heading into turn 1. They're going to have the advantage the shorter way around the racetrack.
Very widely spaced out. These drivers are keeping about half a car length between, and you can see just how much the car goes up and down on the racetrack through the turns. This is before the repave was, and we all remember how badly the track surface was starting to get in the 2007-2008 era before the repave was initiated for the 2011 season, I believe is when it was instated. So this is going to be affecting the car's handling. This is going to be affecting the way the drivers take to the circuit. And something that I was hearing as well during the pre-race and the practice session was these drivers like to work the bottom, but they're saying that if you want to run the outside, then you have to commit to the outside line, because we heard that some drivers were getting up there and then trying to change their lanes mid-corner, and it was almost impossible for them to do it, and they would end up running over people that were underneath them. So that's just how hard it is to run around even the outside of this racetrack.
Yeah, kind of think about Daytona in the respect of Darlington. Oh,
Whoa!
David Duran off the nose of Alonso Chicano. He's going to save it, keep it pointed in the right direction. No caution will wave, but David Duran from the race lead. An errant bump from the 95 going to send him all the way to the back. Looks like Chicano checked up and dropped to the tail end of the field as well, and that's going to give Kyle Lewis the race lead. But think of Daytona as a Darlington. The faster way around the racetrack is right up against that outside wall, but if you overstep that cushion just enough, that wall is going to reach out, it's going to grab you, and it's going to be very difficult to get off of.
Absolutely, and one of the other things that we're going to have to watch out for is exactly what we just saw. Those two tried to link bumper, and they couldn't quite do it. The bumps were too much for the cars to handle, and then even the little bits of contact going through, usually you can get away with a little bit of a push at some of the more repaved tracks. This one, not the case. If you link up, it's very likely that you'll end up in the outside wall or in the inside, like we saw the 54 of Bourne get to the wall. 3 wide down the back straightaway. They're fanning out, some on the apron, but we get through it. I think there was contact between Bourne and I believe that was Chicano, but we get through it.
54 of Tom Bourne getting all used up there the second half of that lap. He settles back to the 6th position. Kyle Lewis, who had 2 left sides down below the yellow line going into turn 3, he's going to be the one to lead us back. Now remember, in this league, there is no yellow line rule. You can go down below the apron and advance your position, but there's not a whole lot of apron to work with, especially on the back straightaway, so don't know how anxious drivers will be to try and make a move like that.
It's going to be one of those desperation moves that you want to make, because there's a lot of grass that comes up. It's not like Talladega where it's all paved down the back straightaway. Now, the front straightaway, on the other hand, you've got some room to work with. You can maybe try something to have something work going through the tri-oval, but that's even dangerous as we're seeing 3 wide behind. That was a couple driver. Tellier in the middle of that almost got pinched. Look again. Bourne is in the middle of a 3 wide, and that could have been treacherous again. These cars are bent out of shape throughout the middle of the pack, and I think that's a result of the earlier incident. It doesn't look like that they're too much down on speed. They look pretty much as competitive as the leaders are right now, which is impressive.
No, we've basically seen this season that these cars are tanks. What looks like a car that will not be able to continue is actually able to be competitive. Case in point, that 97 of Mike Tellier you see dancing around the top side. The whole front end of that car is pushed in, and yet he's got the speed to be able to keep Alonso Chicano out in front. Tom Bourne on his back bumper going to move around Austin Grover. He'll slide into the 3rd position. Now it's Grover and Doziak side by side. That's for 4th. Tellier peeking to the outside of Chicano heading back for the start-finish line.
Chicano keeps the lead of the race. Tellier now tries the outside, but Bourne is on the inside. Contact between Bourne and Tellier almost causing a massive shunt down the tri-oval, but we still stay green behind. Austin Grover on the inside lines trying to make something work with Tom Bourne. I don't know if they'll be able to do it, though, as they goes to the inside and then dances up the outside of the racetrack. Now to the top side goes Bourne. Now to the inside goes Chicano to try and block Grover.
At the onboard here with Austin Grover, how that wheel is left, right. That is not a normal thing to see at a super speedway. The wheel is usually very stationary down the straightaway, but these guys are fighting the race car because it is bouncing even down the straights. Look at how that car unloads as it comes off the corner, almost catching some air there, it looked like, from that cockpit view of the 83.
Tom Bourne was in the wall that last time around through 3 and 4, got too high on the racetrack, ended up losing a ton of positions, now finds himself in the 11th spot, back with Jason Shuey and Michael Norman as company, but at the front of the field, it still holds Chicano over Grover. Doziak has found his way back into the picture. He's running in 3rd place. Cam Caldwell, that last lap around, had a major run up the inside and used it to his advantage. Now finds himself in a 4th place running spot and battling for 5th place between Lewis and Valvano down the back straightaway as we come around to almost complete lap 11.
Now Now, update on David Durand in the 24. Since he went around off the nose of Chicano about 6 laps ago, he's still on the lead lap, but running all by his lonesome back in the 13th position. If there's a driver in the field that wants to see another caution flag come out sooner rather than later, it would be David Durand, because the guy that's trying to run him down for the points lead, Austin Grover, he's comfortably up here in the runner-up spot.
And he's going to try to mitigate the points lead right now. Durand so far back and damaged. He's lost the draft, 13th position, a full 17 seconds behind this group right now. What he needs is a caution. He still has a faster pair that he can use, that he can get back up to speed, but right now I think the name of the game is to not go a lap down if you're the 24. Other drivers who are in a bit of a championship bother right now is Jason Shuey, right in front of him, running in the 12th position. Finds himself coming into this race third in the standings, and he's got a long way to go still if he wants to try and get up to where Grover is. Now, if you're Grover, you just took the lead of the race. You're looking pretty well right now.
Yeah, he got help from Steven Doziak Jr. to get around Alonso Chicano. Chicano was going to pick up his teammate Cam Caldwell, but he got a run on the 83. He jumps up to the outside, picking up the 55 of Doziak. Matthew Rodriguez also up there on that top side. Mike Tellier, third car on the inside line. We're side by side, 2 wide, 4 rows deep right now down the back straightaway.
On the outside, Chicano with the run. He's got Doziak pushing him down the back straightaway. Matthew Rodriguez right behind him trying to push as well. Rodriguez doing well after having the first initial contact happen off his nose, but now he's found himself in a 5th, make that a 6th spot as the inside line gets a massive run throughout the turns 3 and 4 complex. And that's something that you'll see at this track as well, is that typically at some of the more modern tracks is look at Caldwell down on the apron trying to use it to his advantage. 3 wide for the lead. Through into turn 1. Can they make it work? Caldwell has to back out of it. There's almost some contact between him and Tellier. 3 wide through turn 1 and 2. Can they hold it? I think they might be able to do it coming out of turn 2. They do, but there's still 3 wide, almost 4 wide now.
Tom Bourne looking down to the bottom. Ooh, that left front's going to catch the grass there, heading down towards where the chicane would be for the Daytona road course configuration. He tucks back in line behind Cam Caldwell, as you're right, they were 4 wide down the back straightaway there. Everybody able to keep it pointing in the right direction, fortunately. And Chicano now back out in the clean air. Austin Grover in second. It's Doziak and Tellier side by side for 3rd place.
I was going to say before all the chaos happened was that unlike the tracks that are a little bit more freshly paved, this track you can really run on the inside and get the advantage, being that it is the fastest way around the racetrack, and because the outside line you do have that stability up there, it is a bit slower around the outside line than it is on the inside. So that's why we're seeing the inside go back to the old Daytona ways where everyone wanted to get down to the inside and run around the apron there, but that is so close when you get these cars lined up nose to tail like this, and then they get a massive run, and the lead couple of cars might not be able to go anywhere with it, and that's where we see some of the problems happen, especially with the bumps, especially with the apron roll. This is making up for a pretty chaotic race, and we're only on lap 15. Make that lap 16 now.
Grover left the door open as that car got a little late through the tri-oval. Mike Tellier was more than happy to stick his car there on the inside. Grover's heading towards the back. Caldwell moves to 3rd. Milvano now looks for 4th. I think a big reason, too, why that inside line is so much faster in the early going. It's a lot easier to use that yellow line as a gauge of lining your bumper up to the car in front of you. If you're up there in that middle groove or that top groove, we see these cars dancing around the turns. It's got to be a lot harder to line your bumpers up.
It's almost impossible. I don't think you can really line up anyone and try to push them down through the turns. You could probably get away with it on the straightaways, but in the turns, that's kind of what we saw happen earlier with Durand getting deposited down to the inside of the racetrack. He just fell all the way back, was never able to recover from it. Speaking of Durand, he is about half a racetrack behind these guys. He's very slow at the minute. He's praying for a caution to come out as they run up at the front. Oh, a little bit of a bobble by, I think that was Bourne that danced up the racetrack and almost got into some drivers, but now they're single file in front, double wide behind them going down the back straightaway.
And Caldwell picking up Tom Bourne on that top side. Matthew Rodriguez there as well. Ooh, Tom Bourne loose there. Might have gotten a bump from, actually, correction, that was Caldwell that got loose with a bump from Bourne. And now, jumping up to the top side comes Alonso Chicano and Steven Doziak Jr. Now you got 5 on the top, 4 on the bottom. It's a battle now of which line's going to be faster. I think with the damage on the front of that 97, that's not the car you want leading that inside line right now. Not the most aerodynamically sound of the machines in this lead pack.
And because of that, the outside line's going to get the advantage as there's 5 of them lined up trying to get the momentum going. Oh, a bit of a bobble down from Doziak. He tried to have a look to the inside of Chicano, but wasn't able to make the pass done. Chicano throws the block on him and will continue to lead the race as now they're starting to fan down to the inside line. I think Tellier does realize that he can't be a lead car, but he can run with the guys. It's not that he's that down on speed. Doesn't go around.
Off the nose of Robert Kenny, up into the air goes Austin Grover. Big wreck there through 3 and 4. Saw the 3 of Jason Shuey. His car jumped up into the air with the pavement to grass transition. 2, 3, 4 cars badly mangled here on the apron of turn 3 and 4. And look at the 83. That car's got its rear wheels off the ground. The suspension completely mangled underneath of that Chevrolet.
Just trying to get it going against who doesn't have to teleport to pit road to try and stay on the lead lap. And that is some severe damage on the 83.
Can't even turn to the right.
Crabbing around. I think he's gonna have to, he's gonna teleport to pit road. That is unfortunate for Austin Grover. He will undoubtedly probably go more than a lap down at this stage of the race, so tough break for all these guys. Michael Norman was also involved in that. He got a little bit of damage. Robert Kenny, like you said, got some damage. Kyle Lewis, I think, got a little piece of it. If not, he got on the brakes in enough time. Jason Shuey, another driver with damage. Cam Caldwell, the guy who spun initially, going on the back straightaway with some heavy rear end damage on the 12 machine. And I think this is just an incident where the bumps in the racetrack just got to everybody.
There's a look at it going into turn 3, and looks like Robert Kenny got a big run there up the middle. Caldwell, I don't think even knew he was to his left. Came down across the nose of the 34, and a difficult place with how tight the corner is here at the legacy version of Daytona going into turn 3 for drivers to be able to try and avoid Chicano, or rather Caldwell, down to the inside grass. Nobody else hit him, but he took a pretty good shot there into the outside wall, and a hard lick for the 83 of Austin Grover. Now, I believe everybody involved in this incident still have their faster pair to be able to use, but nonetheless, Tom Bourne, 54, was another driver that got a piece of it there that we didn't originally see. So about 7-8 drivers getting damage in this one, and a guy right now that yellow flag putting a smile on his face has to be that 24 of David Durand. As you pointed out, he was currently running about half a lap down.
This is exactly what he needed. That could have come out at a better time for Durand. He was quickly approaching lap down territory. He's on the pit lane right now getting some damage fix. Did not quite go a lap down, so won't have to worry about a free pass. And everyone else, I believe, is coming off the pit lane, getting some service, getting some damage repair. Looking through here, and drivers have taken fast repairs as a result of this one. Undoubtedly so. We have Tom Bourne taken one. We've had the 5th place driver, Vincent Valvano took his a little while ago. Through here, actually not a whole lot of drivers that you think that would. Cam Caldwell definitely had to. He's gotten his damage repair, but some other drivers haven't that you might have wanted to get some damage repair. Michael Norman didn't take one. Robert Kenny, I don't believe, has taken one either. Yes, Robert Kenny has officially taken one, but Mike Tellier hasn't taken one. He's still out on the racetrack. And he was one of the ones that was struggling for top end speed when he was leading in a group, but I don't think that he was struggling for top end when he was just riding in the group, so wanting to hold on to it for a future date.
Tom Bourne is also taken on a faster pair, and as soon as his toe is up, and it just completed Austin Grover, no doubt that was going to be a faster pair in the works, and he's just now leaving his pit stall. So about 6, I believe, drivers in total now are a faster pair in the hole, a third of the way through this race. You saw that last onboard that we took there, getting through that big wreck. That was the 38 of Vincent Valvano, and you alluded to the fact that he had already used his faster pair under the first caution. If he had been collected up in that one, no doubt that would have been his race over. So by the skin of his teeth, he keeps his hopes of being the first multi-time winner on the season alive.
And with that, we'll line them up for another restart. So Alonso Chicano will be the points, or not the points, the race leader still, followed by Steven Doziak. Lewis and Bourne will be your top four. Then it's Duran, who finds himself in fifth place now after all the shuffling going on. And we'll have Rodriguez in sixth. Seventh will be Norman, Tellier, Caldwell, and Valvano make up the top 10. Then it's Robert Kenny, Jason Shuey, Garrett Gleason, which finds himself back on the lead lap after getting one of his laps back, and Austin Grover being one lap down to the leaders, running around trying to catch up to the tail end of the field. So what Grover wants is a quick yellow to come out that doesn't take up a whole lot of drivers in it, that he can get back on the lead lap after the last lap, or the last caution we've had.
All 14 drivers still running, 13 on the lead lap, and one thing that you got to bear in mind here as well is that everybody came down pit road here under this caution. Normally at a super speedway, with the amount of laps we put on, some drivers, you wouldn't necessarily think tires are a necessity. You'd see some drivers go with a fuel-only strategy. Everybody that came down pit road took on 4 fresh Goodyears. So that talks about the old track surface here of Daytona, how abrasive it is on the tires, and how important maybe later on in this race with some late race yellows, some fresh tires might be on late race restarts.
Speaking of restart, green flag back in the air. We're racing again at Daytona. Everyone's spreading out to try and find where they can get in line. Chicano is elected the inside line with Doziak on the outside going down the back straightaway. Now look at the outside run that they're getting between Chicano and Lewis. There's actually pushing down the back straightaway now. Doziak's clear. He could drop down the line if he wants to, and I don't think he will. He does! Gets turned off of Lewis and saves it. Almost. There goes Bourne to the inside trying to save his machine.
Bunch of saves right there. That should have probably been a caution, and it wasn't. Yeah, Doziak Jr. was clear to come down, and Kyle Lewis was the one that gave them the assistance, although he went down a little further than he expected. Great job by Doziak and Bourne by saving it, and great job by everybody around those two guys to give them the space necessary to gather those machines back up.
That was incredible, and that's kind of what plays in what we were talking about earlier with you can push down the straightaways, but you can't push in the turns, because as soon as they got to the turns, it's when Doziak got pushed down and almost lost it going through turn 3. And yeah, good hands-up driving between these drivers, but it's kind of spread the field out quite a bit. You've got, whoa, Rodriguez shooting up the middle of the racetrack, trying to get the position away from Chicano, but can't quite do it as Chicano throws the block. But you've got a group of 6 drivers up in this lead pack. Make that 7 if you count Tom Bourne quickly approaching. And then you've got Norman, Caldwell, and Shuey. Norman and Caldwell in their own group, and then Shuey, Gleason, and Valvano running around in their own group. So drivers spreading out, but the pack is slowly starting to form back up, because you've got Bourne catching back up, and Norman and Caldwell aren't too far away from catching the lead group.
Mentioned the fact just before that last caution, David Durand was running about half a lap down. All of a sudden, his fortunes turn. He gets the yellow flag he needs, and he's now up in the 2nd position trying to get around Alonso Chicano, which may be a big ask because Chicano's thrown some pretty aggressive blocks on drivers that have gotten runs on him. That's been able to keep his AutoZone Chevrolet out in front for the time being.
And it's been impressive watching him being in the lead of the race so long. He started as the pole sitter, and I don't think anyone's really had anything to challenge for him other than a couple of times, but he's putting on a masterclass on how to get around this classic circuit. That being said, he gets turned! The leader gets turned down the front straightaway. He's going to clobber the inside wall and destroys the back end of the car. No one will get a caution for this, as the green flag's still in the air.
Matthew Rodriguez going to go to the point because of all that checking up at the front. Tom Bourne moves into 2nd. Michael Norman now about to take 3rd from David Durand, and that was all a byproduct of Chicano going up to block David Durand. He left the lane open for Mike Tellier, looked at the inside, and the tri-oval came down, and the 97 was to his left rear. Hard hit there for the 95 of Chicano. He has left the scene of the accident, still running on the lead lap. Now, he obviously would be hoping for a caution, but I would assume, didn't really see the impact that you saw there, Anthony, but I would assume that that's going to be a faster pair when and if he comes to pit lane.
Absolutely. The back end of the car is absolutely destroyed, trying to just nurse it around the racetrack. He's running very slow at the moment. He will be caught if we stay green in a matter of a few laps, so definitely wants a yellow flag to come out to save him, but Now that's handed the lead over to Bourne, as mentioned. Michael Norman has leapfrogged through the field, now finds himself challenging for the lead on the outside line, but doesn't have anybody to help him. To the inside, everyone, Bourne, Tellier, and Doziak will bypass.
Norman going to lose at least 2 spots here through 3 and 4. Now maybe drop outside of the top 5 as Kyle Lewis to the inside. Cam Caldwell to the inside. Matthew Rodriguez trying to help the 21 on the top, but doesn't look like that line's going to the front anytime soon. Tellier now takes a look to the inside of Tom Bourne. He's got Doziak Jr. for help. Mike Tellier, wounded race car and all. It doesn't look too pretty, but it's out there in the clean air leading the way here at Daytona.
Behind him still is Doziak, who's got some fair bit of damage on his car himself, trying to just nurse it around. Kyle Lewis, I think, is the most pristine car on the racetrack. I don't think we've called his name in any of these incidences yet, so he is still with a pristine car. That might be the fastest car on the racetrack right now, wholesale, now that the fact that Chicano's got so much damage and is off the pace. Make that Matthew Rodriguez up to the high side, though. He's got a pretty fresh car. He might be able to do some work as he's trying to push the 54 down the front straightaway to the line against the wall.
And there's another big wreck.
Whoa!
Oh, Doziak way up in the air. Rodriguez catches air. Violent hits as the 54 still had all 4 tires off the racing surface.
And that was the caution that Chicano needed, but not the caution anyone wanted, as heavy damage to a number of drivers on the front straightaway as they were challenging for the lead. And that was, again, you can't push at this racetrack.
Tom Bourne's day is done. He used his only faster pair under the last yellow, and that car is completely demolished. Doziak Jr. a lot of damage. Matthew Rodriguez a lot of damage. Let's go back and see what happened. So far, our last 2 cautions have taken place in some very treacherous areas where there's not a lot of room to maneuver to avoid this most recent one right in the center of the trioval.
And this was, again, a result of pushing and trying to shove for the lead of the race. And Tom Bourne took a wild ride. So, too, did Doziak. I believe that was the guy that spun around. So, Doziak also takes a wild ride. Man, just hard shots all over the racetrack for these drivers.
If I'm not mistaken, we'll get another camera view here of the Tom Bourne incident. This is the legacy version of Daytona. There's an area just off the trioval where there's actually 2 steel girders that are exposed inside of the wall. I think that's what the 54 hit that had him catch as much air as he did.
Absolutely, and I think that the game just thought that he was, somewhere where he shouldn't have been, and deposited him up to the sky and a bunch of rotations surrounding and coming down, but
gosh,
man, that's a hard hit that he took. A hard whip.
Tom Bourne visiting the upper stratosphere here in Daytona Beach, Florida. We'll take a look at the Doziak Jr. wreck a little bit more in depth as well, as his car went airborne. That was after he got hooked by Tom Bourne's 54. And we'll have to take an onboard. I think the 24 of David Durand did get a piece of it. So too did Austin Grover. So that's our top 2 in points that got little bits of that incident, as Durand was right behind the 55 when he got into the wall, and then Doziak came down and tagged the 83.
Yeah, there was some damage on Durand's car. It was actually going underneath of Doziak's car, because Doziak had hit the wall and then got launched in the air, and I think that was also what propelled Doziak further into the air, as Durand goes right underneath them and gets heavy front end damage.
On board with the 24, and there you see the 55. Yep, definitely contact there, right around the windshield area, almost literally into the camera well that we have positioned inside of that 24 car. Let's go on board now with the 83 of Austin Grover, who tried the best he could to get down to the inside to avoid, and unfortunately 55 comes right down into his path. A number of drivers collected up in this one, about 5-6 in total, and as alluded to, Tom Bourne, his day is over. There's no way that car is going to be able to continue, or if it does, no way he's going to be in the hunt for this victory. And who would have thought, Anthony, that midway through this race, we're already entering into the vicinity that we kind of talk about near the end of the race, of where it's easier to name off the drivers that still have their faster pair intact than the drivers that have used their faster pairs. I mean, we're almost to that point already. I'm counting about maybe 5 drivers that still have a faster pair left, and we still have the second half of this race left to go.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of drivers left that have a faster pair at their disposal. A few drivers that do. Kyle Lewis, again, one of the cleanest cars on the racetrack somehow, is still with a faster pair that he can use. Another driver that's got a faster pair at their disposal would be the 21 of Michael Norman, a heavily damaged 21, but hasn't taken a faster pair yet. Another driver that's got one remaining is going to be Jason Shuey. I don't know how long that will be, though. He's come down to pit road. We'll have to see if he takes one or not. I don't think he will. That car looks pretty well off compared to some other ones that haven't taken one. We'll document that further. And then the only driver left that's got a faster pair running on the racetrack would be Alex Chicano, which surprisingly didn't get use one for his rear end damage after the spin down the front straightaway.
Yeah, spent about a minute on pit road getting that rear end repaired as best as possible. Still has his faster pair intact. And actually, Mike Tellier also still has his faster pair, still doing with that front end damage, as we saw there at that last green flag run. That car's still pretty racy. He was able to fight his way up there for a point to P1 before eventually dropping back. So 5 drivers still have their faster pair intact. With that caution coming out, we have 13 drivers on the lead lap, and theoretically out of the race would be 14th place Tom Bourne, who is already 3 laps down and will continue to lose laps, as that car will probably not be coming back out on the racing surface anytime soon. So now into the second half of this race. 5 drivers still have their faster pair intact, so they can race maybe a little bit more aggressively, still have that mulligan that they can fall back on. But for the rest of the field, they don't have a lifeline yet, and there's still 30-some-odd laps to go here at Daytona.
Just past halfway still, and for those drivers, whatever they've got is what they've got, and hope that they can get to the end. And that's not to say that these drivers that have the opportunity to get their cars repaired, that might not stand the way it is, because you never know what can happen in the span of 30 laps. Certainly, we've seen our fair share happen in the first 30. Getting underway for the second 30. Green flag back in the air. Valvano on the outside actually gets the momentum on the top side. He'll get still in the lead of over Lewis, but Lewis on the inside with David Duran pushing him down into turn 1. Now, I don't know how much these drivers are going to be wanting to push each other, because that's where we've seen a lot of these instances happen in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you're going to see maybe a little bit more space given here by these guys. But then again, sometimes they're not necessarily in control of how much space they're able to give, just based on the fact that the car having a mind of its own. How about David Durand? He knows his own mind. He goes down to the apron with Cam Caldwell. They're going to go to the point, and they are going to leave Kyle Lewis, who was the one leading us back to green, back to the 3rd position with help from Mike Tellier.
And back behind them, double wide behind, will be between Valvano and Rodriguez. Valvano on the outside after getting deposited, coming into the lead of the race, will now go back into 7th place. Move Rodriguez back up into the top 6 as the inside line, also training around Kyle Lewis, who's falling backwards now with no help on the top side. I think everyone just wants to get into ride mode now. There's so much long to go in the race, and you've got to reserve your stuff. I don't know how much these drivers will be willing to push it, but as I say that, it's almost some contact between Chicano and between Tellier. Chicano, again, we've said how much these cars don't really, they can take a whole lot of damage without slowing down, and we're again seeing Chicano keeping speed even though he's got some rear end damage.
Yeah, Tellier all messed up on the front, Chicano all messed up on the back, but those cars still up to speed, still up here inside of the top 5. Tom Bourne still sitting on pit road. Just got a message from him. He loves going on space missions. Well, I think he took one giant leap for racer kind when he took that flight there out of the tri-oval. Obviously, the end to his day there, but my goodness, I'll tell you what, very rarely do we see a car catch that much air at a super speedway. We expect to see a flip or two, but not nearly with that kind of altitude.
No, not at all. He went all the way up over the grandstands. He could have cleared them if he had the momentum, but it's not often you see a car helicopter that much up into the sky, but it's quite the sight to behold sometimes.
Let's bear in mind. Oh, sorry.
No, that's it.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna bring up. Let's bear in mind here that we've had 5 races so far this season. 5 different drivers have gone to victory lane. We're yet to have a multi-time winner here in the Sunday Superspeedway series. 4 of the drivers that have previously won the season are in the field here tonight. So what do you think? Do we go a perfect 6 for 6, or do we get our first 2-time winner?
But the way that they're racing, it's really up to anyone's guess at this point. It could be a good multi-time winner brigade, though. You're seeing a lot of them still running on the racetrack and still without significant damage. But you've got some drivers in here that could potentially steal a win away from these guys. So it's going to be fun to watch if they can or not. The question is, can they keep their car clean enough in order to get a win tonight? We're seeing a whole host of drivers in various forms and shapes of damage and undamaged, and I think that if you're going to try to get this win, you're going to have to keep your car as undamaged as possible. Someone like Kyle Lewis, again, we've said it before, but we'll say it again, that car is mint right now, and he's been able to keep his fast repair, so if anyone's sitting pretty, it's going to be Kyle Lewis.
We looked back there at the 83 of Austin Grover running 15 seconds off the race leader, David Durand. Remember, these two are battling for the points lead in the current standings. Grover had already used his fast repair previously, prior to the last caution, had that right side damage after contact between himself and Stephen Doziak Jr. Now he is back there off the pace, having to deal with that damage, and so he's hoping that at some point David Durand will run into problems, as Durand is already a fast repair in the hole. So for the time being, advantage 24 in terms of gaining the max points, as, oh boy, getting racy up ahead of him. Caldwell had the lead. Robert Kenny says, hey, I want to go to victory lane in back-to-back weeks.
Well, it was a shot down the inside. Chicano tried to go to the inside, almost below the yellow line to make the pass, but thought better of it going into the turn. And now behind, it's going to get deposited, will be Caldwell to the outside with no one to help him. Up in this field as well, we've got back to the whole point between who might be a first-time winner, who has the potential to be a first-time winner here tonight. It's odd to say that, Austin Grover had not had a win going into this race, but I don't think he is going to be that one. He's back off the pace in 13th place, so I think we can count him out of that brigade. Jason Shuey, again, is in a similar position. He is way behind the pack as well, just kind of clinging on to it, running in a 12th place position. He also is without a win tonight, but you have another driver, Kyle Lewis, is one of those drivers that doesn't have a win, could potentially get the win here tonight. And then Mike Tellier, who is right now in the best position on the track right now to get a win. He is running up here trying to take the lead of the race. The drivers that so far have a win tonight being Duran, Gracias, Rodriguez, and Valvano and Kenny. They're still running in the field as well, but Gracias didn't take the start, but the other three are also here. So right now, if we're talking about who could potentially get a win, it would definitely be, I'm sensing a repeat winner tonight, as they certainly outweigh the ones that haven't had a win.
Less than 25 laps to go, going to be 22 as Robert Kenny hits the start-finish line with Mike Tellier in tow. You kind of look at the statistics coming into tonight between David Durand and Austin Grover, and I really think the only advantage that David Durand has over Austin Grover is his victory earlier on this season. That's why it's only 14 points separating those two, because both of them have been very consistent this year. They're the only drivers that have finished inside the top 10 in the first 5 races. Durand has 3 top 5 finishes, while Grover has 4. His worst finish was a couple of weeks ago at Daytona, where he finished in the 9th position. So, both of them have finished right around each other. Both of them have adopted the strategy of starting towards the back and working their way to the front at the end. I think right now it's just that one win that Durand has in the win slot column that Grover does not have that's given him the advantage in this current battle for the points lead.
Absolutely, and right now Durand, like you said earlier, has the potential to get the points lead even further now with the hardships of Austin Grover, being how he's still running up to speed. So a great points day for Durand, but horrible if you're talking in the context of somebody else, especially Jason Shuey, who also came in 3rd place in the standings. Another good day for points would be for Matthew Rodriguez, because he came into this race 5th place in the standings. 4th place didn't take the start as Volvo goes around.
And that's going to be a big wreck. Rodriguez, Tellier, Kenny involved. The track is blocked up there through 3 and 4 as everyone tries to get on the brakes, and This is more than likely going to spell the end of the day for a couple of drivers as some hard hits were taken for the 97, the 57, the 34, and the 12.
And that was again another incident where we saw someone pushing into turn three, almost the same spot we saw the last one take place in, but this time it was Caldwell, the recipient of the battling behind.
And I believe every single one of those drivers, with the exception of Mike Tellier, had already used their faster pair after the big wreck that took place in the tri-oval for our third caution of the day. Let's go back and take a look at what happened. Now, two things occurred going into turn three. One or both might have led to this. The first thing I saw was Chicano chopped down really close across the nose of Robert Kenny, who had a big run and a big push from Mike Tellier. The other thing I noticed was the 12 of Cam Caldwell looked like he was experiencing some network issues, so I'm not sure if either one of those came into play in this wreck going into three.
Might have had more play in than we thought it would, because he basically merged in with one of the other cars for a split second, that being, I think, Robert Kenny, who he merged in with. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was a factor of it, but it still stands to reason you don't want to push into this turn, and they were leaning on each other going into turn three, and that was a little bit. Actually, Caldwell got the apron first, and that's what spun him around. So I think it was a combination of Caldwell getting the apron and then behind just getting a little bit of contact, and that was enough to send them around.
Hard impact there for Matthew Rodriguez. Nowhere to go. He gets sandwiched into the outside wall between the safer bear and the 12 car. Mike Tellier involved as well. Not sure if the 24 of David Durand got through or not. He was right around the vicinity there. Also up on that outside line. We'll take an onboard with him. He was just at the very tail end of this lead group.
And he just barely, I think, just the slightest bit of contact getting in, and then it's a hard shot that all these drivers. It's really hard to gauge where cars are going to go and where they're going to not go, and then you see all the chaos in front and trying to figure out where to have it happen. But it is typical Daytona, typical Superspeedway racing, where you see the blockage up at the front of the field, and you just kind of scramble to try and figure out where you can and can't go.
Sure what's going on here with David Durand. I guess he is theoretically in his pit box. They are servicing him. That's a rather odd way to get into your pit stall. A couple of drivers did a nice job getting through that wreck. Durand was one of them, but you also saw Michael Norman going around the outside when we were on board with the 24. He's now up to the second position. I'm wondering about that 95 of Chicano, because we saw he was able to gather the thing back up and keep going, maintaining the race lead, but he definitely was involved in that incident. I don't know just how much damage he really sustained, and it looks like he's actually going to give up the race lead to come down pit road this time.
I think he wants to get some more damage repaired onto his 95, and if he can, he wants to keep the faster pair, and though he still has it, he can use it, but he really wants to not have to, and maybe taking these manual repairs up until you need to is the way to go for him. Michael Norman will be the leader of the race. He also hasn't taken a fast repair yet this race, and he's got quite a bit of damage on his 21 machine as well, a lot of it in the rear end. Same kind of story for Chicano. All of his is really accumulated in the rear end, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, oh, he hasn't yet. I think it was just a change of tires, and he's down and away.
Mike Tellier, you'll notice the 97 front end looks like it's had a makeover. That's because under this last caution, he came down pit road, and he has used his faster pairs. So now there's only 4 drivers in the field that still have their faster pair intact. Race leader Michael Norman, as well as Kyle Lewis, Alonso Chicano, and Jason Shuey. We basically assumed that Tom Bourne was out of the race. He has officially now gone back to the garage area, and Cam Caldwell, who was involved in this most recent yellow flag, he is also out of the race. They will finish in 13th and 14th position. 12 drivers still running, all 12 on the lead lap. Some of them damaged goods, some of them taking on the faster pair here under this yellow, and the green flag going to come back out with still 17 laps to go at Daytona.
Michael Norman will be your leader. You'll have Mike Tellier lining up second, then Austin Grover will be behind. Then you have Kyle Lewis. Garrett Gleason will be in 5th place yet again, then Doziak, then Valvano, and Chicano and Jason Shuey trying to have a bit of a gaff, trying to figure out where each of them will line up. Duran will be lining up along with them, and Robert Kenny is quickly trying to approach the back of the field. So too is Matthew Rodriguez at the back of the field as we go to green flag racing. Everyone except for Tellier started on the inside line, so we'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, let's explain that to everybody that may not understand why they were in that formation. All the drivers from 4th place on back came down pit road at the 1 to green signal. If you do that and you come back out onto the racetrack, you have to line up single file at the tail end of the longest line, which in this case would have been the inside. So Mike Tellier finds himself on the outside all by his lonesome. Everybody else lined up on the inside line based off of that EOL program they have here.
And because of that, Tellier's just trying to stay up with this group of cars. Michael Norman is a damage race car, so it's a little bit easier said than done because I don't think there's any car out there aside from the 18 that doesn't have some form of damage on it, hindering its top end speed. But right now, you'll see that the 18 falling back again. This is a strategy I think that Lewis has been using to try to avoid the shenanigans. Whoa!
Ran with a big run, and Michael Norman with a nice save there on the apron. Mike Tellier trying to pin him down. That didn't work out to his favor. Now Chicano says, there you go, Duran. I pushed you to the front, but now I want that clean air.
And going out in front will be Chicano to keep the lead of the race. Tellier now slotted into 2nd place. He's got a massive run going down the back straightaway. Does he take it anywhere? Does he stay in line? Looks like he's going to find some friends for the moment as he's got in line with Chicano, trying to keep the lead of the race. Between the two of them, Austin Grover has now gotten down to the inside of, or in front of, David Duran and is trying to catch back up to these two leaders, and they're doing it pretty quickly. If they can have a run, they can take it somewhere. They can potentially take it to the outside line and get around these guys. We'll have to see if they can or can't do it, but right now, it doesn't look like there's anything for them to do.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how this plays out, but I'm a little worried about that 24 of David Duran because after Chicano left him out to dry on the top side, it was almost as if a parachute engaged out the back of the 24. He lost a ton of speed coming out of turn 2 out of the back straightaway. He saw Austin Grover get around him, so David Duran, it says to me that that car has to be in draft right now to be up to speed. Got a little bit of the incident a couple of cautions ago, has already used his faster pair, and that car might have enough damage on the front end where he has to rely on draft to keep him competitive here at the end.
And that's kind of unfortunate for those drivers that really want to get out in front and show the way because they really just can't at the moment, given the fact that their car is so damaged. And that's going to limit them at the end of the race. If they have a guy that they're battling with that has less damage or no damage on their car and they're trying to battle them for the win of the race, they're not going to be able to do it as well as the other drivers will because just because of the top end speed that you have the lack of. So it's going to come into play late in the race. You might find yourself pushing someone else to a victory rather than competing to win it.
This is going to be the first and last time on the schedule these drivers take to the legacy version of Daytona. Remember that we were originally going to be here back during race 4, but the schedule was changed to run at the updated version of Daytona, so the debut of the legacy version of the Superspeedway on the schedule. And we got the final couple of races, including next week. For the second time, we head back to iRacing Superspeedway. Talladega makes its 3rd and final appearance in 2 weeks' time, and then we crown ourselves a champion when we head to the updated version of Daytona on October 24th.
And that's going to be a pretty exciting number of races going into the finale of the Daytona International Speedway, which will be back here again. It just won't be as bumpy. And I think these drivers are going to be head over heels about the fact that they can push down the straightaways and in the turns again, because it's kind of been fun to watch these guys go back to this kind of Daytona where, you know, if you were watching NASCAR before 2010 and then they did the repave for 2011, it was interesting to watch them try to navigate the racetrack in the latter years before the repave. And then I think these guys are going back to school here now, 11 years removed since the last time this track was ran, and just a reminder of how treacherous this track was and still is on the iRacing platform.
Yeah, it's fun for us as spectators, maybe not as much fun for the drivers because, you know, it doesn't matter what type of super speedway racing it is. The drivers, they're always having to think. Their heads are always on a swivel. You give them the bumps here of the older track surface at Daytona. It's just one more thing that they have to think about, kind of the elephant in the room that these drivers have to deal with on top of everything else.
Yeah, and especially with damaged race cars, trying to figure out how to navigate the bumps with the extra bit of the handicap that you have to have with the cars, the way they handle. But Right now, they're still doing pretty well of it. I think that they're now trying to settle out and run the remaining laps until we get within 5 laps to go a bit cleaner, because I don't think we've seen as many pushes as we used to see. Although, that being said, I don't think some of these cars can get the run for some of these pushes anymore with how damaged the front end and the back ends are. And we're coming close to 10 laps to go. We got about 12 laps to go at this stage in the race. So I want to ask the question, Seth, with how many cars we have damaged and how many cars that still have a fast repair available, I think right now, if you're one of the drivers that have a fast repair at your disposal, you're looking pretty well if you get a caution. But if you go green to the end of the race, I don't see them being the benefactor of anything.
Yeah, then you're thinking, man, I should have used that fast repair under the last caution because now I have no opportunity to be able to use it. To your point, though, in the case there of Kyle Lewis, that car still looks pretty good. He's got a fast repair intact. Jason Shuey's car still looks pretty good. He's still got a fast repair intact, so not as if they necessarily needed it, but you look in the case of maybe Michael Norman, the damage on the back end of his car, the damage on the back end of Chicano. I don't know just how much more speed a fast repair would give them in relation to what they have right now, but those might be two guys, if we go green to the finish, that might look back and say, oh man, should have used the opportunity there under that last yellow flag to come down, use that fast repair, because that might have given me the little bit of edge that I needed coming to that checkered flag.
Yeah, and that's going to be, one of the regrets at the end of this race. But speaking of checker flag, we're coming up close to it, 10 laps to go. Very shortly, so I think we're on the 10 laps to go. So at this stage in the race now, I think it's go time for these drivers, and you see them starting to bunch back up together. You've got Garrett Gleason at the tail end of this pack trying to catch up. You've also got Doziak behind them that's trying to catch back up, and now it's crunch time. Do you try to find friends? Have you made friends throughout this race, and is your car even up to speed enough to find your friends and stick with them? That's the question that a lot of these drivers are going to be asking themselves here, going with 9 laps to go.
I know it was a long time ago back during the first half of this race, but the last time we saw the 24 of Durand with Chicano as his wingman, we then saw the 24 spinning down towards the inside wall out of the tri-oval. Those two hooked up again. Kyle Lewis took a peek on the apron there down the back straightaway. He tucks back in line. Big shove on the top side. Austin Grover to Mike Tellier trying to get that top side going. Looks like right now it will be 10 drivers that will be finishing out this race with a chance of winning. Robert Kenny way off the pace there, about 45 seconds behind the race leader, and Matthew Rodriguez just had his 57 pushed back to the garage area. He'll finish 12th place here tonight. Woo, things getting squirrely up here at the front with less than 10 to go.
Austin Grover in the second place now, trying to cut into Durand's lead in the points. Durand is only right behind, in fact, right below him, as he's trying to catch back up on the inside line. This is a good points day for both of them. Mike Tellier now leads the way. If that car couldn't hold speed, you wouldn't be able to know it. I think he's used a fast repair, though, because that car looks really well off compared to what it used to look like. So he has used a fast repair. He's up to speed. So too is Grover. So too is Durand to some respect. So too is Norman. So too is Lewis. So we'll have to see how they do.
Either way around the slower car of Robert Kenny. You saw Grover push Tellier to the race lead. Now, I know that Austin Grover, he started out the season with back-to-back-to-back podium finishes, 2/3 and a second place. We were asking him how long till we see him in victory lane, but I wonder if he might not be content to push Mike Tellier to the race lead. Why? Big picture championship racing. If he can keep the 97 out in front, keep the 24 in his rearview mirror, that's points that he gains on David Durand heading into next week.
And that's going to be valuable points heading in, because the points lead right now isn't too widespread right now. Only 14 points separate these two at the front of the standings. So definitely wants to try and get it done. Now to the inside goes Kyle Lewis all by himself, but that car's got some speed. That's a rocket ship on the inside all by himself. I don't think he needs anyone to push him, but he certainly can't hold that for long. He's got to find somebody soon if he's going to stay within this group.
And those top four got single file. They were opening up a bit of a gap back to fifth place Alonso Chicano with the double wide to bring Chicano back into the picture. Here's Jason Shuey. It's kind of been classic Jason Shuey here today. Ride at the back and then make your way to the front when it matters the most. He's now on the back bumper of Kyle Lewis, unofficially in the 6th position. Garrett Gleason up in this mix as well. And don't count out those guys of Doziak Jr., Norman, and Valvano back there. I think they're still just hanging. I think they think we may have one more caution here before we get to the checkered flag. They don't want to be up in the thick of it just yet, but I think they will be if we get closer towards that checkered flag.
Just riding around, holding on, trying to make sure that they can stay within group. Up at the front, Tellier and Grover try to battle around on the outside line. They've gotten out in front, but on the inside, here comes Chicano again, making his way back up through. And I think Chicano is another one of those drivers that has a fast repair. If there's a caution to come out, he can get his rear end damage repaired. We saw how well he was at the front. I think that he's trying to hold that momentum to the inside. He's got no one really to help him other than Lewis, but that train is not going anywhere as the outside line's still with the lead.
When it comes to super speedways and you look at statistics of who could win, you can kind of just take the clipboard and throw it out the window, because if you look back at the last 2 Daytona races, Jason Gracias, who won the season opener, led 14 laps, but when you go with the second Daytona race, Matthew Rodriguez only led 1 lap. It was the all-important final lap, so anybody there in your camera shot still has a chance of winning this race, as we've got 5 laps to go, coming around to 4 at Daytona. 3-car breakaway, Tellier, Grover, and Durant.
Duran trying to stay toe with these guys, and out of the outside line goes Chicano, Norman, and Lewis to try to catch up with the lead group. And now everyone starts to single file out. You can tell that Lewis wants to go. He's trying to get around these guys, but he can't get any momentum and nobody to help him on the inside line. He's got Jason Shuey way back behind him that's trying to catch up to the inside line, and that inside line forms. It could be bad news for the guys in front, but right now it's now a 4-car fight. Now someone goes to the inside, but it's Chicano to the inside with a momentum run through turn 3.
It's the run to the inside of Durand, up to 3rd. Now looks for 2nd on Austin Grover. He's going to be alongside of Mike Tellier coming out of turn 4, and he's going to get helped around with the 18 of Kyle Lewis. Hard hitting to the inside wall for Chicano, off the racing surface, below the yellow line. No yellow flag, we stay green. Now the caution waves. Kyle Lewis has gone around.
Lewis went through the pit lane. He's now on the inside. Well, he's on the inside of the racetrack, now on the pit lane. The second time that Chicano has been spun off the nose of someone, and this time it's front end damage to the 95, but no fear there. He still has the fast, and this is the point that we were trying to make. I think now that those guys that saved the fast repair, they're definitely glad they saved it now.
Absolutely. Jason Shuey, Michael Norman. No doubt they will be using their fast repairs. Chicano and Lewis both involved in this incident. They both still had a fast repair intact. So now they're looking back and thinking, hey, we were geniuses to make sure we didn't use the fast repair back under that last caution, because their lifeline is still intact. Here's a look at it again off of turn 4. Looks like the 95 drifted up the track. Lewis tried to fill the hole, and then, man, Kyle Lewis, hard shot there at the entrance to pit road, just barely clips the wall with the left front of his machine. Now, I'm not certain if it was the 18 that brought the caution out, or if it was the 95, or if it was just an admin thrown caution, because usually when you have an incident like what happened with the 95, the caution does not get thrown. So I'm not 100% certain if the 18, who had further contact with Jason Shuey, it looked like, trying to come back up on the racetrack. I don't know if it was the sim throwing the caution, or if it was an admin thrown yellow flag here in the closing stages.
I would dare say, with how delayed it was, it might have been an admin thrown, given the fact that it was a multi-car incident that wouldn't have warranted to bring out a yellow if it was left up to the sims. So we are now...
And confirm, was an admin thrown yellow flag, which sends us into overtime.
So we will be in overtime officially for tonight's race. 2-lap shootout towards the end of it, and with a lot of drivers that have gotten their car recently fixed. So now we're going to see what these drivers are going to go out all out. Everyone's going to catch back up to the field as we still pace around. I believe we're going to get the one to go signal. Not this time. We'll get it probably the next time around, the one to go for tonight's event. But we've come a long way since the start of the race, and now we're starting to see some players up in the top of the standings, or the top of the running order, that have been there for a while, but now they're starting to show how much speed they really had. Mike Tellier is one of them. Austin Grover is one of them. He's been hanging back quite a bit this race. Garrett Gleason is another one of them. He lines up in 4th place, and Doziak now finds himself back into the 5th place position. So wouldn't count any of these guys out to try and get this win away from these other drivers.
Norman, Chicano, Lewis, all using their fast repairs. We're still waiting to see about the 3 of Jason Shuey, whether or not he's going to use his fast repair, as he is down to the attention of his crew. It will be 11 drivers to settle this thing out, and I just got some clarification. The reason that the admin thrown caution was issued was because it was a multi-car incident. That warrants a yellow flag regardless of if the sim throws the caution or not. If it had just been a single car spinning down in the case of Chicano, a caution would not have come out. So good call there by the admin, staying consistent by the rule book. It sends us into overtime, though, and now everybody's kind of on a level playing field. All used their faster pair and setting up here for a green-white checkered, potentially only one green-white checkered. There still is the opportunity that we could see some multiple attempts at overtime here, but look who we got up here at the front. Mike Tellier, who's been close on numerous occasions in the closing stages and just does not seem to have the luck come his way. He's out in front. Austin Grover, David Durand in that fist fight for the points lead. Grover, of course, looking for his first win on the season. Durand looking for his second. They line up second and third. Garrett Gleason, who's kind of been very quiet here ever since we saw him spun around turn one, lap one. He's up in fourth place, and Steven Doziak Jr., who we saw catch quite a bit of air out of the exit of the tri-oval about the midway portion of this race. He's now the completion of the top five, so take a look there, folks. Right there are your competitors for this checkered flag. Who you got?
And a bit of an update on one of the drivers who was competitive. It will be Kyle Lewis has to EOL to the rear, so he will be restarting in the 10th position on the outside line, and he's only got 2 laps to try and get back to the front of the field, but he was deemed the cause of the previous incident, so he will be the unfortunate recipient of the penalty. Robert Kenny will be catching back up to the front of the field. He will be lining up on the inside line in the 34. So we have 11 drivers to settle this race out. And I don't know who the better car is, to be honest, because some of the cars that we've seen that have been strong tonight have struggled late in the race, and some of the cars that we wouldn't necessarily think that wouldn't struggle or wouldn't do well late in the race haven't struggled. So it's really up to anyone's guess who's going to win this one, and don't count out some of these drivers in the mid-pack either. Vincent Valvano, Stefan Doziak, don't count any of them out. They've been showing some speed late in the run. It's going to be a wild couple of laps.
How about this call for the choose cone here with the overtime green-white checkered? First, second, third, all decide to use the inside line. Tellier, Grover, and Durand. Garrett Gleason says, all right, I'll take the track position. Instead of restarting fourth, he'll be on the outside of the front row here for this potentially final restart of the day. Doziak Jr. going to move up to the 4th spot from where he would have originally been 5th. So bit of strategy here in the closing stages as the green flag is out. First attempt at overtime green-white checkered at Daytona.
And Tellier wasn't going to wait around. He gets out to a big lead. That's not necessarily a good thing at Superspeedway, since he's going to be caught up by Grover and Gleason on the inside line as they go through, or make that, not Gleason, make that Durand on the inside line as they travel through turn 1 and 2 again. Try and go down the back straightaway. Single file on the inside, single file on the outside, double wide behind them, though, as everyone's starting to bunch up. Here's where the chaos starts going down the back straightaway.
Keep an eye on the possible chain bumping. These drivers during the course of this race, they've feathered the throttle, they've been on the brakes a little bit. They are going to be flat-footing that accelerator for these final 2 laps. Grover in the tire tracks of Tellier. Durand in the 3rd spot. Gleason side by side with Norman for 4th. Can they make it back around to the start-finish line to receive the white flag? Looks like the answer will be yes. 2.5 miles to settle it out at Daytona.
It's Tellier. It's going to be Grover behind and then Durand behind him. What can these drivers do going through the final going to turn 1 for the final time? Still single file on the inside line. I don't think anyone's going to want to step out of line just yet, but wait till we get to the back straightaway. I think that we're going to see some people trying to use the apron, and well, no one goes down there yet. Treacherous territory, but you can tell that Grover wants to go somewhere all over the back end of the 97.
Moving high, moving low. Look at the run Gleason got with help from Doziak. Norman's going to get spun around by Kyle Lewis back there. Never mind, we race back to the checkers. Gleason still with help from the 55. Tellier moves up to try and stop the run. Gleason with the advantage off of 4. He gets into Tellier. Tellier heads for the inside wall. Gleason, Chicano crosses to the inside. Garrett Gleason's going to win a thriller here tonight at Daytona by half a car length.
As they all spin after the start-finish line, everyone is involved, but Garrett Gleason sideways will cross the line in the 1st place position. He'll take the win. Chicano 2nd. Austin Grover is going to get away with a 3rd place finish tonight.
I don't think that anybody has a race car able to even get back to pit road to head to the garage area. Gleason's out, Chicano's out, Doziak's out. That's three of our top five right there. Looks like Grover will be able to limp it back to pit road, but Eric Gleason able to hold off Mike Tellier out of four. Chicano through the tri-oval. We go 6 for 6 as Gleason gets his first win of the season in the TNR Sunday Super Speedway Series. And looks like Austin Grover says, "Here you go, Garrett. I'll do some burnouts for you."
A spiritual burnouts on the pack straight away, and that was intense. It was incredible to see these guys battle it out to the line, and at the end of it, Garrett Gleason from the mid pack comes up and gets away with a first place victory. And I think that that continues the trend of first time winners this season, as he didn't come into this race with a previous victory this season.
Absolutely. We got to go back and look at this. There you see the contact between Kyle Lewis and Michael Norman. They finished 10th and 11th, but look at this out of four. Gleason moves down to block Tellier, sends him down to the inside. Look at Chicano, barely able to clear Doziak. He looks to the bottom. Gleason's not going to allow it. He door bangs him down to the start-finish line, and half a car length officially 41 thousandths of a second. Garrett Gleason going to pick up the victory here tonight at Daytona. I'll tell you what, these guys may not have been all that thrilled with the old rough racing surface of Daytona, but what a show it put on for the fans here tonight, and what an unbelievable finish.
Absolutely. Everyone trying to lean on each other to get the run, and no one really able to link up with anybody due to the, the lack of stability through the turns. And it really brought about some interesting racing. You kind of had to go back to school to learn how to drive on this track, even though that it's still Daytona. It was so much more different than we've used to running in the last 11 years. So 11 years worth of learning around the new track, you had to relearn how to do this one.
Absolutely. You take a look at the finishing results here tonight. Gleason with the victory. Chicano brings it home second. Austin Grover not only finishes in the podium for the fourth time this season, but Austin Grover, he ends up getting those 10 bonus points for most positions gained here tonight. He was up 10 from his 13th starting spot, only 7 positions gained by Vincent Valvano, and David Rand only gained 5. So Grover going to close that points lead up, especially the fact as well that Durand finishes 6th here tonight behind Doziak Jr. and Vincent Valvano, the completion of the top 5. Robert Kenny, that car was off the pace. He's able to bring it home in 7th. Jason Shuey will finish 8th. Mike Tellier will finish 9th, and Kyle Lewis will finish in the 10th position. He and Michael Norman got together there through the center of 3 and 4. Norman will not make it back to the start-finish line, finishing in the 11th position, and then out of the race were the cars of Matthew Rodriguez, Cam Caldwell, and Tom Bourne. But wow, you just kind of have to now sit back, take it all in, and realize what happened there. What an incredible race here at Daytona. And man, I'll tell you what, I'm a little bit bummed the fact this is the only time we're coming to this version of Daytona this season. Why do we come back here for the season finale? Because no doubt it delivered here tonight in an exciting race.
Absolutely. I mean, it's fun to watch these guys have to. It's gonna sound weird coming out, but it's fun to watch these guys struggle around a super speedway, and we saw a lot of it tonight. And it was fun to watch these guys because these cars, the modern cars, are built like tanks. They could door bang each other. They can have a lot of damage, but still stay competitive. So yeah, why not? Let's have the season finale here. I think that would be a great idea to bring a finale at this racetrack in this particular configuration.
Well, I guarantee you the drivers have to be exhausted after this one. 60 circuits, well, actually, no, 63 circuits with those overtime green-white checkered there around this really bumpy 2.5-mile super speedway. But let's see if they've got enough strength for some post-race interviews. Let's see if we can dial up our third-place finisher here tonight, Austin Grover. Hey, Austin, Anthony, and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Man, what a thriller here tonight at Daytona, but man, it took a long road for you guys to get to that point. A lot of torn up race cars along the way. Obviously, this is not an easy version of Daytona to have to deal with because the track in and of itself is a monster, and then you've got everybody else racing side by side, 3 wide on some occasions. I mean, from your point of view, describe what was going down there in those final couple of laps in that overtime green-white checkered.
Man, Mike and I were just sailing away. I was hoping it would just stay green there till the end. I'm disappointed, even though we finished third, so I have no reason to be disappointed. But I wish it would have stayed green because I think we both would have just been gone. That being said, yeah, this track was it was tough to handle. I think I've got my force feedback a little bit too high for this track.
No doubt the bumps probably are giving your arms a bit of a workout tonight. Don't have to go to the gym later tonight, but this was a great points day for you as well because you came into the race second in the standings, and the guy leading the points, Duran, finishes about 3 positions behind you. So, given the fact that that's a thing, you're going into the next race with a bit more cut into the point standings lead. So, what do you think that the next couple of races are going to prove for your championship efforts?
Well, I've been in catch-up mode for the championship basically the entire season. I don't think I've left the second place spot all season long in points. Um, that being said, I might have actually gotten the points lead because I'm pretty sure I wound up passing the most cars in the race, which would give me 10 bonus points, which would put me about 3-ish points in the lead. But I could be wrong, and Garrett might have passed a couple more than me. So we'll see how that goes. But if I wind up in the points lead, it's definitely going to be a different mentality. Just going into defend mode instead of be aggressive mode.
We can confirm that those 10 bonus points are coming your way. Picked up 10 spots from the start of the race to the finish of the race. One thing I got to ask you here too. I mean, we've documented it during the course of this season. These cars can take a beating and still be competitive. We saw that you were dealing with the right side damage you sustained when the 55 came down to you, that incident in the tri-oval. But we saw that that car was still able to be up there in the draft, still be up to speed, and really be able to push the 97 out in front, as you mentioned, kind of start pulling away from the rest of the field. Is there a fine line here of knowing if your car is going to be able to still be competitive or not with the damage you sustain?
From what we've found, between all of us, we've kind of talked about it. So long as you only have aero damage, normally these cars keep up so long as you're in the draft. Um, if you've got actual engine damage, that's when you run into an issue. So if you can push that clutch in and you're still revving at 2000 at idle, you should be good.
Well, Austin, it's an incredible run for you here tonight. Another podium finish. That marks your fourth podium finish on the season. And yeah, it's going to be really close between yourself and David Duran for sure for that points lead heading into iRacing Superspeedway for the second time this season next week. We're now going to give the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
A huge shout out, as always, to TNR. I want to say congrats to G Money, Garrett Gleason, for getting that win. That's awesome. Shout out to my fiance for once again letting me race on Sunday nights. I know it's not hard. We've got a 3-month-old here at home that she kind of keeps an eye on when I do this. So I really appreciate that. And of course, huge shout out to you guys here at FRN for putting on these awesome races and helping us out on Sunday nights, giving us something awesome to do and putting on a show for everyone out there.
Well, that's Austin Grover. He and the rest of the field put on a show for us tonight, that's for sure. He brings it home P3 here tonight, the legacy version of Daytona. Congratulations, Austin. Best of luck here down the home stretch next week at iRacing Superspeedway.
Thanks, guys.
Let's see if we can get our second place finisher here tonight. Started on pole, brings it home P2. That's Alonso Chicano. Hey, Alonso, Anthony and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I got you guys. How you doing?
Man, I mean, we're doing great. If we took a look at where your car was running position-wise during the course of this race, it would probably look like somebody's heart monitor pulse because we ended up seeing twice you get hooked off of somebody's bumper. First time, no caution comes out to save you. Second time, a caution does. You had to pass maybe the most cars here tonight to get yourself up to that second position, but didn't use the faster pair until late in this race. Even with the damage you had, that car was fast from start to finish.
Yeah, it sure was. It was. I mean, I say it was handling great, but everyone pretty much has the same car. I don't know. I was just really able to work my way through the field, and early on, I started first and was able to stay up front for those first 20 laps pretty easily. And I'm pretty sure I would have stayed. I would have led probably like 30 laps if it wasn't for my teammate dumping me. But it was fun. Um, got dumped again, but I guess that's what happens at these tracks when you have to block and do all that. So maybe I had it coming, but it is what it is. This is all for fun, anyways. So that we were able to get second. Should have probably gotten first with the run I had in the end, but the 7 wanted to just door slam me and get the win for himself. So that's fine. Yeah, it was an interesting one for sure.
One question I have before we turn it back to Seth was that we were talking all throughout the night about how this track, you kind of have to go back and relearn how to run it because it is the same Daytona, except it's the older surface. So 11 years worth of running on the new surface, and now we come back to the old one. How much of a shock was it to get back on track and now have so many bumps through the turns and on the straightaways?
It definitely adds a little spice to this plate racing. But I like it. I think it's lots of fun. Um, you know, um, you just need to be a little bit more careful racing in these packs. And like I said, I think it works for me. I think I was the guy to beat out there today. Um, I'm pretty sure I led the most laps, if not close to it. Uh, so it's different, but I look forward to it each time, just because it catches everyone off guard. Um, but it fits me. So
Just to build a little bit off of Anthony's question there, I mean, obviously with the older track surface, it brings an entirely different element to the table than what we've seen in the past couple of Superspeedway races. And with the faster pair available, we saw that you didn't use it until the very end, which ended up being a genius play. The contact you had there with the caution that led to the green-white checkered, you were able to use the faster pair at that point. But I mean, with it being this type of a racetrack, with the cars moving around as much as they did, I mean, how much more difficult did it make it in terms of knowing when you wanted to use that faster pair?
well, with this series, I mean it usually comes down to like the last few laps, and if you don't have that fast repair with you, then with 5 to go, 3 to go, most of the time it's like there's gonna be a caution coming out, and if you get in it, then you're done. So you really want to have it for that last caution, because if not, then I just don't think you have a chance of winning. So you really gotta try to save it. Try to maintain a clean car. For me, I just try to stay up front because that's the safest place to be unless uh, you got Mike behind you. But yeah, that's pretty much how it goes.
Well, we definitely saw you up front a good portion of this race. You led us to the green. You finished second place, fought your way back up to the front after those couple of spins. Definitely a fast car for you here tonight. Congrats on a P2. And now we're going to give the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I have AutoZone car, but I would most like to thank in the pits news. I would like to thank Grid Network for sponsoring me. I'd like to thank all my teammates. Sorry to Cam for I was the one that actually dumped him, so sorry about that. But yeah, Radius Racing, everyone in that group. I'd like to thank you guys, of course, for broadcasting this. Um, and yeah,
That's Alonso Chicano. He's your runner-up here tonight at the Legacy version of Daytona. Congratulations on a great performance there, Alonso. Best of luck next week at iRacing Superspeedway.
thank you. See you guys.
All right, let's go down to Victory Lane. Sixth different driver that we interview down in Victory Circle this season. Tonight, it's Garrett Gleason. Hey, Garrett, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yeah, guys. Wow, what a race.
Yeah, I mean, let's go all the way back. Lap 1, turn 1, catch the apron, spin up into the field, big wreck on the first lap. Did you think at that point we'd be talking to you in Victory Lane here tonight at Daytona?
You know what, guys? If the Giants and the Yankees didn't win today, I probably would have just parked it there. But I figured today is my day. Accidents happen. I was more upset with myself for as many cars as it took out. And it's poetic justice that the guy who kind of got into me at the beginning. Steven Doziak, my teammate, was the one to push me out front at the end.
I can certainly respect the fact that the fellow Giants fan here as well enjoyed seeing the Saints fall today. So, we'll be respectful with that as well. And yeah, you had a fantastic win tonight, and it all really came down to managing the track layout, because we saw a lot throughout the first half of the race that everyone was just trying to figure out where to slot in line, and then you kind of slinky through the field. So, what was kind of the overall mindset trying to get around this racetrack tonight?
My mindset is always let the chaos happen and just be there at the end. And unfortunately, I had to use my fast repair on lap 1. But our strategy was to just stay back as a team. My teammates Doziak, Kyle Lewis, Vinny, and Jason Shuey, we all had a plan. And then we determined how many of us had fast repairs left, and it was Kyle and Shuey, and they were kind of our guinea pigs. And we said, okay, guys, with 10 to go, you guys start leading, something happens, guess what? We'll have a redo. So that was our strategy, and it just worked out that I was able to get on the high line with Doze behind me on that final restart.
With Jameson Winston on my fantasy team, I'm going to hold my tongue in terms of the football talk. But, I mean, one thing that we saw here tonight, Garrett, was a lot of drivers trying to throw the blocks on drivers trying to make passes, whether it was on the outside or even trying to utilize the apron, which is considered inbounds in this league, and then spinning off the nose, trying to make those blocks. You made a couple of blocks there, one on the 97 and one on the 95 coming around to the checkered flag. I mean, obviously very risky. How were you able to keep that thing pointed in the right direction?
That's a good question, and it's certainly not talent. I can't take credit for that, because these guys who have raced super speedways with me before know that just maybe 2 weeks ago at NSRA, I wrecked majority of the field. But I got a couple weeks ago, Kyle Lewis and I were coming to the white, and he ended up turning me. Whatever happened, and that kind of stuck with me, that if I ever got in that position again, I can't be taking other people's feelings into consideration as much. Mike's a brother to me. There's nobody I'd want to hit less out there than Mike. And same thing with Alonso coming to the line there. I felt I had no choice. Alonso's fast. He'll be able to win another race. I might never win another race. So I just said, screw it. I'm turning left, and got across the checkered flag in time.
Well, you pick up the victory. We go a perfect 6 for 6 so far this season, and first-time winners in the TNR Sunday Super Speedway Series. Congratulations on a great run. Thank you for giving us a thrilling finish, and now we're going to turn the mic over to you for some victory lane. Thank you, sponsors and shout-outs.
Well, thanks, guys. First and foremost, thanks to FRN, Matt Rodriguez, for everything he does for this league, from the social media stuff to having you guys broadcast this. It's a big help for us getting our name out there on Sundays as well as Tuesdays. I'd like to thank Dunn Raceway Park, Billy Thornton Graphics, for all he does for the league. I finally got him into victory lane. I used to hire people in other leagues to run his cars just to have a shot at winning, so it was nice to finally get in victory lane for him. Thanks to Master Millerite, Max Graphics, Sim Shots. Thanks to Johnny for painting this car because I didn't have time. And to all my teammates, like I said, this is a team win. There's no trophy, but if there was, I would chop it up into pieces and give you guys a piece, because we've earned this. So thank you, everyone, and let's do it again next week. Maybe we'll get somebody else their first win.
That's Garrett Gleason. He gets to celebrate in victory lane here tonight at the legacy version of Daytona International Speedway, race number 6 of the TNR Sunday Super Speedway Series. Congratulations, Garrett. Go enjoy that victory, and looking forward to carry this momentum next week into iRacing Super Speedway.
Thanks, guys.
So as we conclude our coverage here from Daytona, the point standings are in, and actually quite a bit of a leapfrog taking place there in the points lead vicinity. Austin Grover has gone to the points lead. I thought it was going to be maybe single-digit points between himself and David Duran, but instead it's actually going to be 16 points that Grover will have over the 24 heading into next week. The big reason for that is because in this race, Austin Grover picked up 12 bonus points. David Duran only picked up 2. So a huge chunk of change there for Austin Grover in the bonus points category gives him a rather sizable lead, more of a points lead over Durant going into next week than Durant had over Grover coming into tonight.
Yeah, so with the points lead fluctuating like this, and I think to kind of further the point here is that Austin Grover said that he didn't have the points lead at all this season, and this is the first time he's taken the points lead. So now he's talking about being on the outside looking in. Well, now he's looking back, and now he's got the points lead at 16 point lead over Durand now. So now Durand's got to play catch up. I wonder how this is going to affect his strategy for the next few races, because with the season coming to an end, it really does come down to these last few races. And, Lady Luck has some say in it, but with the run that he's had, this could be a permanent thing for Grover.
Just to explain too, for people that are kind of doing the math and thinking, well, Grover only had 10 points more in bonus points than Durand. How does he have such a big points lead? With the rather unorthodox type of point standings that they have here per race, 50 points were gained by Austin Grover, only 30 points for David Durand. So in terms of where they finished, the race points is 20 points difference. That's what gives that big advantage to Austin Grover to be able to leapfrog David Durand for the points lead. Third in standings is going to be Jason Shuey. He's 92 points out, and Garrett Gleason jumps up 7 spots with this victory, up to fourth in the standings, 112 points back. So that just gives you an idea that even 5 races into the season, taking the 6th green flag on the year, how close the points were, allowing Gleason to leapfrog that many drivers.
Absolutely. So, it doesn't take much in this series with the amount of points that you have and the amount of everything else. So it's going to be fun to watch how the point standings progress. We only have a few races left to run. I believe 4 is the amount of races we have left to run this season, and we'll be right back here at Daytona for the season finale. Although, be it the much easier to run track of Daytona, but going to iRacing next week, that is proven to be a pretty interesting track in of itself. We've been there once already. Lots of room to race, lots of speed. However, not as much speed as you think you would have. We thought we'd be running well over 200, but they're not running much faster than we were tonight. So once you get the lead, you can't get to the lead very well. And that can influence who ends up being the points leader at the end of that race and who might jump through the field, because there's a lot of opportunity to make up a lot of positions at that track.
Of course, David Durand losing the points lead tonight might be looking towards iRacing Superspeedway to get the points lead back. The first time that we went to iRacing Superspeedway about 3-4 weeks ago, that's where he picked up his checkered flag so far this season. But should be a good one, as we are just 3 races away from determining our champion. And here tonight, the legacy version of Daytona playing its part. Garrett Gleason wins in a thriller here tonight, the 3rd closest finish of the season here in the TNR Sunday Super Speedway Series. Anthony, it was a great one from start to finish. Appreciate you joining me up in the booth here tonight.
It's fun to go back and experience the old Daytona with the new cars, and thanks for having me along with us, and I can't wait to see what happens next week when we head back to iRacing.
Absolutely. Hope you guys join us as well. Next week, October 10th, next Sunday night at 6:35 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the green flag will wave for the 7th race of the season at the iRacing Superspeedway. We thank you for joining us here tonight for all the action at the Daytona International Speedway. Appreciate all of you tuning in and hope to see you guys next week. For Anthony McCurry, I am Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and